Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and this brewery are mainly known for their hazy New England styles, and they're starting to get their name out there a little bit more outside of Sweden now, which is really interesting to see. So I would recommend you try some of their beers if you get the chance. But for this review then, we are going to head a little bit north of me here in Skåne. We're going to go up to a little place called Nora to the north of Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and we're having a look at another beer from Apex Brewing Company. This particular beer is called Hedes. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and as usual from this brewery, it's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. This beer was released as part of the local Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for April of 2021, and this must be my 15th or so beer that I've reviewed from these guys on the channel now. Always keep an eye out for the things that these guys are releasing, because you are pretty much guaranteed a very nice New England IPA with them. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Always nice to return to Apex Brewing every month, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Apex Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Apex Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nora to the north of Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this company was founded back in 2017 by Daniel Gatchitz and Niklas Lundgren. Both of these guys are musicians, and this is quite a common theme in Sweden actually for musicians to get into brewing beer. Mikrofonbryggeriet and Odd Island Brewing are two other examples of this, or Duck Pond as they're known now, not Mikrofonbryggeriet. But both of these guys, as I said, are musicians. Niklas played in the band 59 Times the Pain, while Daniel played in The Voice of a Generation. And Daniel and Niklas are responsible for the brewing operations and run the brewery on a day-to-day basis. But there are a few others involved in the company on the business side of things as well. That's Leif Carlson, Ola Eriksson and Roger Hjelm. But they started off with a 500-litre brew kit and 6 fermentation tanks, and they were just selling their beers in the local area before they got them into Systembolaget. The first beer they got into Systembolaget was the single hop, and I reviewed that on the channel for you a couple of years ago, and that is still a really solid beer. I would definitely check that one out if you get the chance. But in 2018 they brewed around 35,000 litres of beer per year, and they produced about 25 different varieties, all of which were New England IPAs, and over the course of 2019 they brewed around 120,000 litres of beer. Over 2020 I know that they expanded a little bit more, although I couldn't find an exact figure for how much they brewed, and then of course again with 2021 they will no doubt expand upon that. But as of April 2021, when I'm reviewing this particular beer for you, they've produced a little bit over 60 different kinds of beer. And I did see that on Glassbanken they released a lager recently, so I'm hoping that that appears in Systembolaget over the next few months. So I will need to keep an eye out for that actually, come to think of it. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Apex Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's it for your history section of the video. Quite a quick one today actually. But yeah, as I said earlier, these guys very well known and very well respected for their hazy New England IPAs. Definitely one of the top producers of these in Sweden, along with the likes of, you know, Brewski, Stigberget, OO Brewing, Duck Pond, Fermentor Arna doing some awesome stuff these days as well. 10 Hands are new boys on the scene. that are doing really well in this style category as well. So yeah, we're a bit spoiled for choice here when it comes to New England IPAs in Sweden. So yeah, but these guys are probably one of the best known ones across Europe these days. I know some of these beers are making it across to England and things like that now. Some of the English guys have been reviewing these too. But yeah, let's crack on and have a taste of this one then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open it up. As you can see, the artwork is quite typical of what we've had from Apex Brewing Company before, really nicely presented as usual. But yeah, you always get this kind of Illuminati type thing with the animal sitting on top. So I don't know exactly what you call that animal there, I have to say. It's gone right out of my head as to what this thing is. I wish they would put the name of the animal in Swedish and English on the side, because some of them are very recognisable, some of them aren't. But yeah, as you can see, they've got their graffiti style artwork on the side, Hedes IPA, and that is also on the little bit here, ABC, Apex Brewing Company, music, beer, and people. But yeah, 6.5% New England IPA, this one. The hops in this are Mosaic, Citra, and Equinox, all American hops, all roughly about 14% alpha acid. Mosaic gives you a bit of tangerine, Citra gives you the mango and the citrusy notes, Equinox is quite a limey leaning hop, and the malt base in this one is Maris Otter Extra Pale, Naked Oats and Torrefied Oats, so a less complex malt base in this one compared to others, and this one is using a WLP 66 London Fog Yeast. 440ml can. This beer cost me, I believe, 45 Swedish kronor, so that is roughly about £4 sterling, €4.50, about $5, $5.25 American, just to give you guys a price reference in different places in the world. But yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. Really looking forward to this. So, let's go for it. Citra, Mosaic and Equinox. Quite a tried and tested combination, that. Although it feels like a wee while since I've had Equinox actually. Citra and Mosaic are very common, obviously. But yeah, I think that's enough for the appearance and aroma sections just now. But yeah, well, this looks, I have to say, this looks like a very attractive beer. It looks very, very nice. So you can see there's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one, but that's going to fade away quite quickly just to be a nice thin sort of foamy layer, I suspect. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it looks very, very nice. But yeah, you can see if I put my fingers behind the glass, it does look pretty. It's got a nice kind of more natural haze to it. I don't think this is the soupiest and gloopiest in New England IPAs we've come across from Apex before, but then again it is 6.5% compared to 8. I think most of the beers I've had from Apex actually have been like 8%ers. So yeah, that's something I also should bear in mind with this beer. But in terms of colour, this one's a lovely bright yellow, like a mango juice. I always love comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. So remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But you know, the malts that you use initially is a big part in deciding the eventual colour. And yeah, the level of haze that you get in this beer, is as we say, the level of haze in the beer depends on the wheat and the oat content, and the yeast also plays a little bit of a role in there. So theoretically it should go up as you go up the alcohol scale, but it jumps, you know, it changes from brewery to brewery just depending on what ratios they're using. But in terms of a New England IPA, this beer looks exactly as you would expect. A little bit more of a kind of natural haze thing to it, as I say, than a soupy gloopy thing. But I think it looks very, very nice, to be honest with you. I think it comes across as very, very attractive. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Let's go for the aroma then. Yeah, it's actually a typical, it smells like a typical Apex beer. So I always find with these Apex beers, you get a little touch of a kind of farmhousey sort of thing to them. There's a little bit of a kind of, it's almost like a bit of a woody, crackery sort of base. So with this beer, as soon as you smell it, you get that crackery, that sort of Jacob's cream cracker, a slightly woody, slightly grainy base to the beer. You pick that up right away, and I think that's the yeast that that does that, the WLP 66. I think that's definitely quite a big factor. It plays quite a big role in all the different things that you're getting out of this beer. But yeah, you get that crackery base to the beer, which I think works very, very nicely. So yeah, crackery, bready base to the beer, which I really like. Then on top of that, you can smell the nice, smooth, white bready note there. It's got a lovely kind of white, doughy, fresh bread quality out of it. So yeah, I really like that about this beer. But on top of that, you've got some nice... you can smell the oats coming out of this one. It's got a lovely, smooth, oaty character to it. And it just... You know, the oats, I think, start to become a little bit more prominent the more that you smell of this beer. Absolutely. You do get a wee touch of that slightly Werther's Original, kind of butter candy, brown sugary sort of thing to this one, but not overly much, I would say. Yeah. The malt base in this one is quite straight shooting, and like I said to you, the malt base in this one is actually quite a little bit less complex compared to some of the other ones that we've had from Apex Brewing Company before. If you take the aroma in, there's a little bit of a sort of wheaty. There's a little bit of a slightly. There's no wheat in this beer. We should point out. Or it does actually. Well, it actually says on the can there's wheat malt in it, but it doesn't say. It didn't say that on the Untappd page when I had a little look at the specifications they put on it. So that's interesting. So that makes sense that I'm getting a bit of wheat malt out of it. It says here right on the can wheat malt, but yeah, I was going to say the next thing is that at the back of the nose you do get a little bit of that wheaty bitiness in there. But in fairness, you know, this malty side of the beer that we're getting, it's very typical of what you would expect from. It's very typical of what you would expect from Apex Brewing Company. The yeasty and malty components you get from these guys do tend to be quite similar from beer to beer. They can lean slightly different ways. Some of them can be a bit more oaty, some of them can be a bit more wheaty, but you know, the yeasty component is usually pretty constant. But yeah, Jacob's cream cracker base, a bit of a smooth, fresh, white bready character on top of it, a little bit of an oaty, creamy kind of thing, a wee bit of a sort of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing. We've got Maris Otter in there, so that kind of makes sense. Then at the very back of the nose, you've got a wee bit of a kind of wheaty, bitey thing. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, because that's where our focus should be when it's an IPA. On the hoppy side of things, little touch of earthiness out of the beer, which I think is most likely to come from Mosaic. You do get quite a lot of floral aromaticity out of this one. I wouldn't say it's overly spicy, but it's got a nice bright floral aromaticity to it, which I can really appreciate. And at the front of the nose, it comes across as lovely and sort of fresh and grassy, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely a nice green component to this beer for sure. So yeah, lots of interesting things coming out of this beer for sure. I really like how the green components with these Apex Brewing Company beers, but not a surprise. Nice sort of zesty grassiness, good bit of floral aromaticity, quite a bright floral aromaticity, and just a wee touch of earthiness. Fruity wise, it is what you'd expect as well. So on the fruity side of things, you get a lovely kind of soft mango-y note out of this one. That's the Citra for sure. Then you can smell, I think the Mosaic actually takes a little bit of a back seat in this one. You can detect a little bit of the tangerine orange, but I'm actually getting quite a bit of the limey note out of the I'm getting quite a bit of the limey note out of the Equinaut. When you get Citra and Equinaut together, they tend to, you know, because Citra does have its own limey qualities, but I think Citra in a way almost kind of emboldens Equinaut. I found this in a couple of beers. So this beer actually comes across as mangoes and then a lot of a, you know, lemon limey sort of citrusy kind of element. So I really like how that side of things goes together in this beer. There's a lot of really interesting stuff with this one. So yeah, it's quite typical of Apex Brewing, this beer, in terms of its aroma. I think it's going to taste very, very nice, but take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma before you get stuck into it. I think it's about time that we try this beer now. So let's put the rest of it in the glass. And I think we're going to go for it with this one. I line the can because my OCD has to be happy. And there we go. So let's crack into this beer then. This one is the Hedes IPA, 6.5% ABV, New England IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Nora to the north of Örebro here in Sweden. You know, I've had some lovely beers from these guys. Take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma, but we're tasting this beer now. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah. This is very nice again. I'm just going to say straight up, if you know Apex Brewing Company, this is nothing surprising from them by their standards, but it's just always nice to drink these beers. What can you say? It's a very typical example of what they do, but again, it's done really, really well. So thumbs up to them. Once again, they've really got their consistency together with these New England IPAs. They're pumping out some really, really good stuff there. I mean, that's, you know, my only complaint about Apex Brewing Company in a sense is that they have stuck solely to New England IPAs. I would love to see these guys produce a West Coaster. I'd love to see them release a black IPA as well. I think that would be really, really interesting if they could do that. But, you know, they've made their name on these New England IPAs, so to a degree, I can understand why they stick with them. But I would love to see some West Coasters and, you know, some black IPAs and stuff like that from these guys. Absolutely. But this is another solid beer from them. So well done. Absolutely well done. So yeah, gets a big it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. Absolutely. Where do we start then? Straight away across the middle of your palate, if we break down the flavour of this, straight away across the middle of your palate, again, you get that nice, you can get that sort of Jacob's cream crackery kind of element to it, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, that's the backbone of your beer. That sort of Jacob's cream crackery thing. There are one or two little woody elements in there, and this is always the thing. The beers always smell a little bit more farmhousey and yeasty, but I think otherwise they're actually very, they're very, very smooth in a sense. I really like how that side of it goes together. You get a little bit of bite out of these beers, and then a nice bit of smoothness later on. So, yeah, so yeah, Jacob's cream cracker base, which is really nice. It does have a wee bit of a woody undertone to it, like I said. Then on top of that, you get that lovely, soft but fresh, white bready character coming out of the beer, and it's just really, really nicely done. Down the kind of middle line of your palate, in that middle third of your tongue, you can feel the really smooth kind of, you can feel the very, very smooth oaty notes in there as well. The oats do come across as a little bit sort of creamier, I think, which is great. So yeah, the fruity side of things in this kind of complements that very well as well. So it's just got a lovely creaminess in the middle of the palate, then a good bit of a fruity zestiness at the front of the palate. It just works really well. In the very centre of your palate though, you get a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original. You get a little bit of that sort of Werther's Original butter candy type thing, which I can really, really appreciate. So yeah, the middle of your palate, I think the more you drink of this, the more it kind of smoothens up and it starts to lean more towards the oaty side of things. So it's a very layered beer, as I say. Cream cracker, a little bit of a smooth white bread, the oats kind of down the middle line of your palate, that kind of thickens up and smoothens out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, and then you've got that wee Werther's Original note sitting on top of that in the very centre of your palate. On the back third of your palate, this is where you get the more kind of wheaty elements. So the border region between middle third and back third of your tongue, you can feel there's a little bit of a more kind of doughy, bready sort of thing, and a little bit of a kind of bread crusty element. And as you go on to the back third of your palate, it becomes more wheaty and bitey in a sense. So I really like how that side of things goes together. Yeah, so the bitiness that you get out of this one just adds a little bit of contrast to the malt base, because otherwise it's very smooth. But yeah, back third of your palate, the sort of more bitey, wheaty notes underneath, but then on top of that you get the sort of more airy, yeasty kind of elements sitting on top of that. So when you start at the back of the palate of this beer, the flavour is at sort of this height, and then it just gradually condenses down as you as you move further forward. Then as you reach the border region, it drops down quite dramatically, and then you've got a nice kind of dense layer all the way through the as you move through into the middle third of your palate, actually, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, that's your malt base. Straight shooting and kind of typical of what you'd expect of Apex Brewing, though. So yeah, I like it. I certainly do like it, and it does get more oaty, as I say, and more smooth the further that you go into the aftertaste. So yeah. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness there. And as you move further forward, it smoothens out. You've got a little bit of a kind of herbal quality, and as you move further forward on the sides of your palate, it does get more kind of floral and aromatic in a sense. So yeah, it does. The floral notes that you get in this one are quite nice and bright. They're not spicy per se, but remember, all of these hops are kind of 13-14% alpha acid, so it makes sense, but they will be late additions. You can tell that, you know, the late addition hops. Remember, the earlier you add the hops in the wort boil, the more bitterness and stuff you get out of them, but the later you add them, the more kind of flavour and aroma you get, and you can tell this beer is not very bitter. That's a characteristic of the New England IPA, of course, though, but this beer just has a nice bright floral aromaticity. It gets a wee touch spicy on the front corners of the palate, but as you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's definitely, you know, kind of lighter and grassy in a sense. So yeah, I certainly like that about this beer for sure. The green component is very, very nice. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, what can we say about that? So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And this one's got a few interesting things going on. It is quite a citrusy, zesty leaning beer, this one. But round the front curve of the palate, as I said, you've got a nice grassy element to the beer, and that does have a good bit of zest to it. But if you go to that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, there's a bit of a kind of yeasty kind of element builds up, a little bit of a bread crusty side under there as well. And then the base of that front third of your palate is a very nice, it's got a very nice smooth oaty kind of character, if you like. So I can appreciate that about this beer as well. I think the smoothness and the oats that you get underneath that fruity component just they help bring out the zestiness a little bit actually as well, which is quite interesting. So if you go to the back of that sort of fruity pup component of the beer, there's a nice wee passion fruity element. As you move further forward from that, you get a more mango-y type element to it. Then as you move into the front half of the front, you maybe get one or two apricot-y flavours actually as you move further forward from that. There is a wee bit of that there, but as you move into the front half of that, middle third of your tongue, that front third of your tongue, sorry, you start to get the more zesty elements. So there's a wee bit of you can feel a little bit of the mosaic-y orangey note there, but I think again mosaic really takes a bit of a back seat in this beer to Equinox, I would say, and the Citra I think is promoting a lot of the more zesty characteristics of the Equinox in a sense as well. So for me, when you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a wee bit of a tangerine orange, but then as you reach just the kind of front edge of the tip of the tongue, it's definitely lemony and it's got a really nice limey element to it. Then you get those grassy esters right on the front edge of the tongue. But yeah, overall the flavour of this beer is very, very nice. The malt base and yeasty characteristics are very typical of what you'll get from Apex Brewing and some of their other beers. The green component is very nice, and then it's quite a citrusy, zesty leaning beer this, but there's a bit of tropical fruit at the back to balance it out. I personally think that the mosaic takes a bit of a back seat, although in fairness you do get an element of kind of pineapple out of it, and that's something that you can pick up a little bit from mosaic at times. So I do get a wee bit of the mosaic, the tangerine pineapple-y sort of thing into the aftertaste, but no, it's quite I'd say that the Citra and the Equinox take the lead in this beer a little bit more. But yeah, overall Another very, very nice IPA from Apex Brewing Company. And you are pretty much guaranteed that with these guys. They know what they're doing with these styles, actually. So, yeah, I think we can leave it there for the tasting section of this review. Mouthfeel-wise, what are we going to say? Yeah, I mean, mid-bodied, it's mid-bodied, right in the middle of the spectrum. Smooth carbonation, little touch oily as well, for sure. So yeah, little touch oily, this one, which I think is quite nice. I do like, there is a bit of smoothness to this beer as well. You've got a nice kind of creamy smoothness coming out of this one. But yeah, good little bit of hoppy bitterness as well. I think it's a fairly standard 25 or 30 IBUs that you're getting out of this beer. There's a good bit of zestiness though, so it maybe feels a little bit more than that. But the malty side of things, lovely smoothness in there, a little touch of sweetness. Then you've just got a juicy, fruity element to this beer as well. As I say, it's quite a zesty, citrusy leaning beer, this, but with a little bit of tropical fruit in behind it. But I think that summarises everything about this beer. Another just solidly executed beer from Apex Brewing Company, and I'm glad I was able to review this one for you here on the channel. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. This one was the Hedes IPA, coming in at 6.5% ABV from Apex Brewing Company in Nora near Örebro, just out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Always enjoy reviewing the beers from these guys, and this is a brewery that I would highly recommend you check out if you get the chance. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Apex Brewing Company. There will no doubt be another release from these guys next month. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Check out my social media, check out Apex Brewing Company. See you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, later.